Chapter 1. A simple beginning. The world was a different place when I was born. There were no cars or trains. People traveled on horses or walked. Houses were made of wood and had dirt floors. Life was hard, but people were strong. I came into this world on a cold day, the 12th of February in the year 1809. My home was a small, wooden house in a part of Kentucky called Hardin County. The house was small and simple, but it was warm and safe. There was a big fireplace where we cooked our food and kept warm in the winter. My father, Thomas Lincoln, was a strong and hard-working man. He worked the land, planting corn and other crops. He was tall and quiet, but he had a kind heart. My mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, was a gentle and loving woman. She was always busy with housework, cooking, and caring for the family. She taught me to read and write. I loved to listen to her stories about the world. Our life was simple. We grew our own food in a small garden. We raised chickens for eggs and sometimes for meat. We made our own clothes from cloth that my mother spun. We didn't have much money, but we had everything we needed. I loved to explore the woods near our home. They were full of tall trees and strange plants. I would often go hunting with my father. We would look for deer and other animals. I learned to shoot a gun and set traps. These skills were useful for putting food on the table. There were no schools near our home. My mother taught me to read and write. She used a worn-out book that she loved very much. I learned the alphabet and how to spell simple words. I was eager to learn more, but there were few books to read. Even though our life was hard, we were happy. We had each other, and we had the land. We worked together as a family, and we helped each other. I was a strong boy, and I loved to help my father with the chores. I learned to plow the fields, mend fences, and care for the animals. These were the skills of a farmer, and they made me strong. I watched the sky at night and wondered about the stars. I dreamed of faraway places and exciting adventures. I didn't know what the future held, but I was ready for anything. Chapter 2. A Hard Life. Life in our little wooden house was not always easy. We worked hard from morning to night just to have enough food to eat and clothes to wear. Father was strong, but the land was not kind to us. The soil was thin, and it was hard to grow good crops. We often didn't have enough corn or potatoes to last through the winter. Mother was always busy cooking and cleaning. She made our clothes from cloth she spun herself. It was a lot of work, but she did it with a smile. She taught me to help her, and I learned to sew and mend. One day, a terrible thing happened. Mother got very sick. She was in bed for many days, and she didn't get better. We called for a doctor, but there weren't many doctors in those days, and the one who came couldn't help her. After a long time, Mother closed her eyes and never opened them again. I was very sad. She was my best friend. Father was sad too, but he had to be strong for us. He was a good man, but he didn't know how to comfort us. We missed Mother very much. The house felt empty without her. I tried to help Father with everything, but it was hard. I was still a young boy. To make matters worse, we had to move. The land we lived on didn't belong to us. We had to leave our home and find a new place to live. It was a long and difficult journey. We traveled in a big wagon pulled by horses. We took all our belongings with us, our clothes, our tools, and our few animals. We finally found a new home in a place called Indiana. The land was different there, and the people were different too. We built a new log cabin, but it was smaller and colder than our old home. We had to start over again. Life was even harder in Indiana. The winters were long and cold. and the summers were hot and dry. We worked hard to clear the land and plant crops, but it was difficult. We often didn't have enough food. I missed the woods and the creek where I used to play. Even though life was tough, I kept learning. I read every book I could find. I borrowed books from neighbors and from the few people who came to our part of the country. I was curious about the world and wanted to know everything. I dreamed of a better life, a life where people didn't have to struggle so hard. Despite all the hardships, I grew stronger. I learned to rely on myself and to face challenges with courage. I knew that life was full of ups and downs, but I was determined to make the best of it. Chapter 3: A Growing Boy. As the years passed, I grew taller and stronger. My body changed, and I became more like a man. I helped Father with the hard work on the farm. I learned to plow the fields with horses, to chop wood, and to build fences. My hands became tough and calloused from working in the hot sun and cold wind. I loved to spend time in the woods. The trees were my friends. I knew where to find the best berries and nuts. I learned to track animals and to set traps. I could shoot a gun straight, and I was proud of my hunting skills. The woods were my playground, and I felt free there. I met other young men in the woods. We would wrestle and race. We shared stories and laughed together. I learned about life from them. They taught me how to be brave and strong. I was curious about everything. I wanted to know how things worked. I watched the sky and wondered about the stars. I looked at the river and wondered where it went. I asked Father and the older people questions, but they often didn't have answers. I loved to read. I borrowed books from neighbors and from the few people who came to our part of the country. I read about history and about great men. These stories filled my head with dreams. I wanted to be brave and strong like the heroes in the books. When I was old enough, I left home to find work. I worked on riverboats, helping to move goods up and down the river. It was hard work, but I enjoyed the adventure. I met people from all over the country, and I learned about different ways of life. I saw big cities for the first time. The buildings were tall and made of brick. The streets were crowded with people and horses. It was a different world from the quiet life I knew. I felt small and lost, but I was also excited. I learned a lot about myself on those journeys. I learned that I was strong and could handle anything. I learned that I wanted more from life than just hard work on a farm. I wanted to make a difference in the world. I returned home from my travels with a new sense of purpose. I was ready to face the challenges of life. I knew that I would never be rich or famous, but I hoped to make a good life for myself and my family. Chapter 4: A New Beginning. After many years of working on other people's land, I wanted a place of my own. I dreamed of a farm where I could build a house and raise a family. With money I had saved from working on the riverboats, I bought a piece of land in Illinois. It was not a big farm, but it was mine. I worked hard to clear the land. I cut down trees and burned the branches. It was backbreaking work, but I was strong and determined. I wanted to build a home for my family. After many months of hard labor, I had a small clearing where I could build a house. I built a log cabin, just like the one I grew up in. It was small but cozy. I had a fireplace to keep us warm in the winter and a small porch to sit on in the summer. It was my own little piece of the world. I needed to find a way to make a living on my farm. I decided to open a small store. I bought goods from the city and sold them to my neighbors. It was hard work, but it brought in some money. I hoped to save enough to buy more land and raise animals. One day, a young woman named Mary Todd came into my store. She was smart and funny, and I was drawn to her. We talked for hours, and I realized I was falling in love. We were married soon after. Mary brought a new kind of life to my cabin. She was used to a more comfortable life, but she adjusted to life on the frontier. She was a good cook and a kind woman. Together, we dreamed of building a happy home. Life on the farm was not easy. We had to work hard every day. We planted crops, raised animals, and ran the store. There were good times and bad times. Sometimes the crops failed, or an animal got sick, but we always found a way to keep going. We had 4 children: Robert, Edward, Willie, and Thomas. They brought joy to our lives. I wanted to give them a better life than I had, a life with more opportunities. I read to them and told them stories. I wanted them to grow up to be good and kind people. As the years passed, I became more involved in the life of my community. I was elected to the state legislature. It was a new world for me, a world of politics and laws. I learned a lot about how government worked, and I started to think about how I could make a difference. I was still a farmer at heart, but I was also becoming a politician. It was a strange new life, but it was exciting. I felt like I was growing and learning every day. Chapter 5: A Growing Interest in Politics. Life on the farm was hard work, but it was also peaceful. I loved the rhythm of the seasons, the feeling of the soil between my fingers, and the sight of the sun rising over the fields. But there was a part of me that yearned for something more. I started to pay more attention to what was happening in the world around me. Newspapers came to our town, and I would read them carefully. I learned about politics and government. I didn't understand everything, but I was curious. I began to think about the problems facing our country. There were disagreements between people from different parts of the country. Some people wanted to keep slaves, while others wanted to free them. There were also arguments about money and trade. I didn't know all the answers, but I knew something had to change. People started to talk about politics in the store. Farmers, shopkeepers, and travelers would share their opinions. I listened carefully and tried to understand different points of view. I realized that people were passionate about their beliefs, and they were willing to fight for what they thought was right. I decided to get involved. I started going to political meetings. I listened to speeches and debates. I learned about the different political parties and their ideas. I joined the Whig Party, which believed in a strong government and economic growth. Running a store helped me understand people. I learned how to talk to different kinds of people and how to listen to their concerns. I realized that people wanted their voices to be heard. They wanted their government to work for them. I was elected to the state legislature. It was a big step for me. I was no longer just a farmer and storekeeper. I was now a politician. I had to learn new rules and new ways of talking. It was challenging, but I was excited about the opportunity to make a difference. In the state legislature, I met people from all over the state. I learned about the problems facing different communities. I worked hard to find solutions to these problems. I introduced bills to improve education, build roads, and help farmers. I was proud to be able to help people. I knew that I was just one person, but I believed that I could make a difference. I wanted to create a better future for my family and for everyone. I was willing to work hard to achieve my goals. Being a politician was not easy. There were arguments and disagreements. Sometimes I felt like giving up, but I remembered why I started this journey. I wanted to make a positive impact on the world, and that kept me going. Chapter 6: A Dark Time. Our country was changing fast. People were angry and divided. There was a big argument about slavery. Some people thought it was wrong to own other people, while others thought it was necessary for the economy. The country was like a house with a big crack in it. I was against slavery. I believed that all people are equal. I knew it was wrong to treat other people like property. But many people in the South depended on slaves to work their farms and plantations. It was a difficult problem with no easy answers. Politicians were arguing and fighting. The country was split into two sides, the North and the South. People were choosing sides, and it was hard to stay neutral. My friends and neighbors were divided. Some supported one side, and others supported the other. I tried to stay out of the argument, but it was hard. People were angry and afraid. They were saying mean things about each other. It was like a storm was coming, and nobody knew how to stop it. Then came the election. A new president was chosen. The country was more divided than ever. The South was very angry. Some states decided to leave the United States and form their own country. It was like a family breaking up into two parts. I was worried about our country. I knew that things were going to get worse before they got better. I talked to my friends and family about what we could do. We didn't have any answers, but we knew we had to be strong. Our country was in trouble. It was like a ship lost at sea in a big storm. We didn't know where we were going or if we would survive, but I had hope. I believed that our country could be saved. We just had to find a way to come together again. I knew that it would be a long and difficult journey. There would be sacrifices to be made, but I was determined to do my part. I wanted to help heal the wounds of our nation and bring people together. It was a dark time for our country, but there was also hope. We had to find a way to overcome our differences and become one nation again. It would not be easy, but I believed in the American people. I was afraid, but I was also determined. I knew that the future of our country was in our hands. We had to choose wisely. Chapter 7. A Nation Divided. Our country was broken. The southern states had left to form their own country. This was called the Civil War. Brothers fought against brothers. Families were torn apart. It was a terrible time. As president, I had to make hard decisions. I knew that many people would not be happy with me, but I had to do what I thought was right for the country. I wanted to keep our country together. The war was long and bloody. Soldiers died on both sides. Many families lost loved ones. It was a time of great sadness and loss. I visited soldiers in hospitals. I talked to them about their hopes and dreams. I wanted to let them know that I cared about them. It was heartbreaking to see the young men who were injured or sick. The war was also hard on the people who stayed at home. Many women had to take care of farms and families by themselves. They worked long hours and faced many challenges. Children suffered too. They missed their fathers and brothers. There was not enough food or clothing for everyone. Prices for everything went up. People were struggling to make ends meet. It was a time of great hardship. Even though the war was terrible, I believed in our country. I believed that we could overcome our differences and come together again. I tried to keep the spirits of the people up. I gave speeches and wrote letters. I wanted to give people hope. I knew that the war would end someday. When that day came, we would have to rebuild our country. We would have to find a way to forgive and forget. It would not be easy, but I believed it was possible. Many people were angry and bitter. They blamed each other for the war. It was hard to heal the wounds of the past, but I believed that we had to try. We had to find a way to come together as one people. The war was testing our country in ways we never imagined, but I was determined to see it through. I would not give up. I believed in the strength and resilience of the American people. We were a nation divided, but I hoped that one day we would be united again. Chapter 8: A Leader in Crisis. The Civil War was a dark time for our country. People were suffering. The economy was bad. Many people had lost their homes. It was a difficult time to be president. I had to make many hard decisions. I had to decide where to send soldiers. I had to decide how to get money to pay for the war. I had to decide how to help the people who were suffering. It was a lot of pressure. I worked long hours. I met with generals and other leaders. I read reports and made plans. I tried to do everything I could to win the war and help the people. I traveled around the country to visit soldiers and to give speeches. I wanted to boost people's spirits. I wanted to let them know that I cared about them. It was important to show people that I was strong and determined. There were many challenges. Some people disagreed with my decisions. Some people tried to hurt me. But I stayed focused on my goal, to win the war and save the country. I made mistakes, but I learned from them. I tried to be a good leader, but it was not easy. I was under a lot of stress. I missed my family. My wife and children were living in the White House, but I was busy with the war. I didn't have much time to spend with them. It was hard to be away from them, but I knew it was important for me to be there for the country. The war was a test of our nation. It was a test of our strength and our courage. I believed in the American people. I knew that we could overcome any challenge. I was tired and worried, but I kept going. I had a job to do, and I was determined to finish it. I knew that the future of our country depended on it. The war was a dark cloud hanging over our nation, but I was determined to find a way to bring sunshine back into people's lives. Chapter 9: Victory at Last. After many long years, the war was finally over. The South had surrendered. Our country was no longer divided. We were one nation again. It was a time for celebration, but also for healing. Many people had lost loved ones. Many homes were destroyed. Our country was like a person who was very sick and was just starting to get better. I was happy that the war was over, but I knew that there was still much work to be done. We had to rebuild our country. We had to bring people back together. We had to make sure that everyone had a chance to succeed. I wanted to make sure that all people were treated fairly. I wanted to make sure that everyone had the right to vote. I wanted to make sure that everyone had a chance to get an education. It was not easy to rebuild our country. There was a lot of anger and bitterness. People were afraid of the future, but I believed in the American people. I believed that we could overcome any challenge. I traveled around the country to give speeches. I talked about hope and unity. I wanted to inspire people to work together. I wanted to show people that we were stronger together than we were apart. There were many challenges. The economy was bad. Many people were out of work. But we were making progress. We were building new railroads and factories. We were creating new jobs. I knew that it would take time to rebuild our country, but I was determined to see it through. I was proud of what we had accomplished, but I knew that there was still much work to be done. We had come through a very difficult time. We had learned a lot about ourselves. We had learned the importance of unity and cooperation. We had learned the value of hard work and perseverance. I was grateful for the opportunity to serve my country. I had done my best to lead the nation through a difficult time. Now, it was time for others to step up and lead. I was ready to return to my home in Illinois. I wanted to spend time with my family and friends. I wanted to enjoy the simple things in life. but I would always be grateful for the chance to serve my country. I would always be proud to be an American. Chapter 10. A Tragic Loss. Life after the war was supposed to be a time of joy and peace, but sadness came to our door. Our dear son, Willie, became sick. We took care of him, but he grew weaker. The doctors couldn't help him. It was a dark time for our family. We were heartbroken. Willie was a bright and loving boy. He brought joy to our lives. We couldn't believe that he was gone. Mary was very sad. She took care of Willie with great love. She blamed herself for not being able to save him. I tried to comfort her, but there were no words to ease her pain. Our other children were also very sad. They missed their brother. We tried to spend as much time together as possible. We talked about the good times we had with Willie. We remembered his laughter and his smile. The loss of Willie was like a dark cloud over our home. Nothing seemed the same. The house felt empty without him. We missed him terribly. I tried to find comfort in my work. I threw myself into rebuilding the country, but my heart was not in it. I missed my son terribly. People sent us letters of condolence. They offered their sympathy. Their kindness helped us to get through the difficult days. Slowly, with time, the pain began to ease. We learned to live with our loss. We kept Willie's memory alive by talking about him and sharing stories about him. We planted a tree in our garden in memory of Willie. It was a small thing, but it helped us to feel connected to him. The loss of a child is a pain that never truly goes away. But with time, we learned to live with our grief. We found strength in each other and in the love of our family and friends. Losing Willie changed me. It made me appreciate the time we have with our loved ones. It taught me the importance of cherishing every moment. I will never forget Willie. He will always be a part of my heart. But I also know that life goes on. We must find a way to live with our loss and find joy in the world again. Losing Willie was the greatest sorrow of my life, but it also made me a stronger person. Chapter 11. A Nation Reunited. After the war ended, our country was like a puzzle with many missing pieces. We had to put the pieces back together and build a new nation. It was a big job, but we were determined to do it. One of the most important things was to bring the country together. The North and the South had been fighting for so long. There was a lot of anger and sadness. We had to find a way to heal the wounds of war. It was not easy to forgive and forget, but we had to try. We had to learn to live together as one people. We had to build a new future where everyone had a chance to succeed. We started by rebuilding the country. We repaired roads and bridges. We built new schools and hospitals. We created jobs. It was hard work, but we made progress. We also worked to make sure that all people were treated fairly. We passed laws to give African Americans the right to vote. This was a big step forward. We were building a country where everyone had the same rights. It was not always easy. There were still many challenges, but we were making progress. We were building a stronger and better nation. I traveled around the country to give speeches. I talked about the importance of unity. I encouraged people to work together. I wanted to show people that we were stronger together than we were apart. I met with people from all walks of life. I listened to their stories. I learned about their hopes and dreams. I wanted to understand their challenges. I knew that it would take time to rebuild our country, but I was hopeful. I believed in the American people. I believed that we could overcome any challenge. We had come through a very difficult time. We had learned a lot about ourselves. We had learned the importance of unity and cooperation. We had learned the value of hard work and perseverance. I was proud of what we had accomplished. We had built a stronger and more united nation. But there was still work to be done. We had to keep moving forward. We had a bright future ahead of us. We had the opportunity to create a new world, a world where everyone had a chance to succeed. It was a big responsibility, but I believed in our ability to do it. Our journey as a nation was far from over, but we were on the right path. Chapter 12: A Legacy of Hope. I never imagined that my life would be part of history books. I was just a simple man who wanted to make a difference. I loved my country and its people. I wanted to build a better future for everyone. My time as president was full of challenges. There were many ups and downs, but I tried to do my best. I made mistakes, but I learned from them. I was determined to make a difference. I believed in the power of the people. I believed that together we could overcome any challenge. I wanted to inspire people to be their best selves. When my time as president ended, I returned to my home in Illinois. I wanted to spend time with my family and friends. I wanted to enjoy the simple things in life. But I never stopped caring about my country. I followed the news. I was interested in what was happening. I hoped that the leaders who followed me would continue to build on the foundation we had laid. I knew that my work was not finished. There was still much to be done, but I was hopeful for the future. I believed that the next generation would continue to make progress. I wanted to leave a legacy of hope. I wanted people to remember me as a man who cared about others. I wanted people to believe in the possibility of a better future. My life was a journey. It was full of ups and downs, but I learned a lot along the way. I learned the importance of hard work, perseverance, and kindness. I believe that everyone has the ability to make a difference. No matter how small you think you are, you can make a big impact. I am proud of what I accomplished, but I know that it was the work of many people. It was a team effort. We all played a part in building a stronger and better nation. As I looked back on my life, I felt a sense of peace. I had lived a full and meaningful life. I had made a difference. I hope that my story will inspire others to dream big and work hard. I hope that people will remember me as a man who loved his country and its people. My journey is over, but the journey of our nation continues. I believe that the best is yet to come. The future is bright.